Theseus, the Duke of Athens, is to marry Hippolyta, the Queen of Amazons. Theseus and Hippolyta had previously been at war, but Theseus had defeated Hippolyta and, in addition to winning the war, had won Hippolyta's heart also. Their marriage is to take place on the night of the new moon in the month of May. A lord of the name of Aegis comes to Duke and lodges a complaint with him against his daughter Hermia, who, instead of marrying Demetrius, a man chosen by Aegis himself, is determined to marry Lysander, with whom she is deeply in love. Both Demetrius and Lysander are young courtiers of the Duke, and both are highly eligible bachelors, but Hermia has become deeply attached to Lysander, with whom she has exchanged many love tokens and whom she is solemnly committed to marry. Under the Athenian law, a girl must marry the man of her father's choice, and failing to do so, she must either become a nun and spend her whole life as a chaste maiden or incur the penalty of death. Hermia tells the Duke that she would rather become a nun than marry Demetrius, whom she does not love at all. At the same time, Lysander points out to the Duke that Demetrius had previously been in love with a girl called Helena, who still loves Demetrius, but Demetrius has forsaken her. The Duke, wishing to respect the Athenian laws, says that Hermia must revise her decision, and he gives her 4 days to make up her mind in this respect. Theseus says that Hermia must give her final reply on the night of the new moon, when he would be married to Hippolyta. A group of Athenian artisans are preparing a play about the love of Pyramus and Thisbe for presentation on the night on which Duke Theseus is to get married to Hippolyta. The play is to be performed by these amateur actors in the presence of the Duke and Hippolyta for their entertainment and in honor of their marriage. These artisans include quince, bottom, flute, snout, snug, and starveling. The play, chosen by them, has as its theme the love of Pyramus and Thisbe and the tragic end that love. These artisans decide to hold the rehearsal of the play in the wood on the outskirts of the city of Athens. Lysander and Hermia, finding it impossible to get married in the city of Athens, decides to run away and go to a place which is beyond the jurisdiction of Duke Theseus, and the penalty will not be given to them. They decide to meet each other in the wood outside the city, and from there to proceed to a place where Lysander's widowed aunt lives and where the Athenian law is not applicable. They confide their plan to Helena, who has always been a very close friend to Hermia, but who is now feeling very dejected because the man with whom she is in love does not love her any longer, even though he had vowed to remain true to her. Helena inwardly decides to reveal the plan of Lysander and Hermia to Demetrius, in the hope that she might be able to win Demetrius's favor. Accordingly, Helena informs Demetrius about the elopement of Lysander and Hermia have planned. Demetrius decides to follow the runaway lovers to the wood, where they are to meet each other, and Helena decides to follow Demetrius. The wood on the outskirts of Athens is a place where the fairies sometimes hold their revels. It so happens that Oberon, the king of fairies, is to visit the wood to hold his revels, while his wife Titania, the queen of fairies, is also visiting the same wood in order to hold her revels separately. Oberon and Titania are at present not on good terms with each other. Titania has got a lovely changeling boy stolen from an Indian household, and she has refused to hand over the boy to Oberon, who wants the boy at his own page of honor. Titania's refusal to part with the boy has annoyed Oberon, who plans to punish Titania for this act of disobedience to him. When Oberon and Titania meet, by chance in the wood at night, they accuse each other of marital infidelity. Titania says that Oberon has had a love affair with Shepherdess and that he has also a love affair with Hippolyta, the queen of Amazons, while Oberon accuses Titania of having a love affair with Theseus, the Duke of Athens. Titania once more refuses to hand over the changeling boy to Oberon. When Titania has moved away to another part of the forest, Oberon overhears a talk between Demetrius and Helena, both of whom have now arrived in the wood according to their respective plans, separately conceived. Demetrius has come to look for Hermia, while Helena has come to try to win the heart of Demetrius. Demetrius scolds Helena for having followed him into the wood, while Helena persists in pleading her love for Demetrius. Oberon feels that Demetrius is behaving very callously towards Helena, and he therefore decides to employ a device by means of which he would make Demetrius respond to Helena's love. On the other side, Lysander and Hermia have also arrived in the wood in accordance with the promise that they had given to each other. Feeling tired, Lysander and Hermia decide to spend the night in the wood. So they lie down on the ground at a little distance from each other and fall asleep. Oberon orders his lieutenant Puck, a mischievous but very active and resourceful fairy, to bring him Cupid's flower known as love in idleness. Puck brings the flower in a very short time. Oberon gives Puck a little of the juice of this flower and asks him to search the wood and find out where a young gentleman wearing Athenian garment is. Puck is asked to apply this love juice to the eyes that young gentleman when he had fallen asleep. The juice of this flower has a magical quality. When the person to whose eyes it has been applied wakes up, he or she would instantly fall in love with the first creature, whoever that creature may be, whom that person happens to see. Oberon wants that this juice should be applied to the eyes of the sleeping Demetrius, so that when Demetrius wakes up and sees Helena before him, Demetrius would fall instantly in love with Helena, and would thus begin to respond to Helena's love for him. Puck goes and in the course of his search for a young gentleman wearing Athenian clothes happens to see the sleeping Lysander, who also is wearing Athenian garments. Puck applies the love juice to the eyes of the sleeping Lysander. In the meanwhile, Helena, who has been spurned by Demetrius, is moving about in the wood till she comes to the spot where Lysander lies asleep. Helena does not notice the presence of Hermia, who too is lying asleep there at a little distance from Lysander. She awakes Lysander, who, on opening his eyes and seeing Helena before him, falls immediately in love with her, thus proving unfaithful to Hermia. So a new complication has arisen on account of Puck's mistake in applying the love juice to the eyes of the wrong man. Oberon, wishing to punish his wife Titania for her disobedience, applies the juice of the same flower to the eyes of Titania when she lies asleep. In the meantime, the Athenian artisans have arrived in the wood to hold their rehearsal. When the rehearsal is going on, Bottom, who is to play the role of Pyramus, moves away and stands behind a bush, waiting for his cue. At this point, Puck, wishing to enjoy some fun at the cost of these artisans, places an ass's head upon the shoulders of Bottom without Bottom's becoming aware of it. When Bottom returns to his friends to continue with the rehearsal, they feel scared to see a monster, and they all run away in terror, thinking that some supernatural being has come to torment them. Bottom does not understand why his friends have run away from him, because he does not know that he has now been transformed into an ass. In order to show that he is not feeling afraid of anything in this wood, he begins to sing a song. It so happens that Titania, to whose eyes Oberon had applied the love juice, lies asleep close by. The loud singing of Bottom awakens Titania, who, seeing Bottom the ass before her, instantly falls in love with him. Titania's passion for Bottom the ass provides much amusement to both Oberon and Puck. Oberon feels that his purpose has fully been served by his having applied the love juice to Titania's eyes, because Titania is going through the humiliating and degrading experience of being in love with an ass. Titania now begins to woo Bottom, the ass, saying that he is very beautiful and very wise, that she would please him in every possible way. When Titania is collecting the flowers in order to crown her lover, Bottom the ass, Oberon approaches her and asks her once again to surrender her changeling boy to him. At this time, being infatuated with Bottom the ass, Titania agrees to surrender the changeling boy to her husband. Oberon is now reconciled with Titania and would therefore like to cure her of her infatuation for Bottom the ass. When Titania falls asleep again, Oberon applies the juice of another flower, which is called Diana's bud, and which has the power to nullify the effect of the love juice, which has previously been applied to her eyes. The result is that when Titania wakes up now, she becomes her normal self and feels disgusted to see Bottom the ass, to whom she has been making love only a little while ago. The quarrel between Oberon and Titania is now over. Bottom the ass is still asleep. Under Oberon's instruction, Puck now removes the ass's head from the body of Bottom. Oberon now discovers the mistake which Puck had made in applying the love juice to the eyes of the wrong Athenian gentleman. He would therefore like to rectify the situation. Finding Demetrius asleep, Oberon now himself applies the love juice to Demetrius's eyes and also arranges matters in such a way that Helena appears before Demetrius just when Demetrius wakes up. Seeing Helena before him, Demetrius falls immediately in love with Helena and begins to ignore Hermia altogether. Helena is now being courted by both Lysander and Demetrius because both of them are under the influence of the love juice. As for Hermia, she is feeling deeply dismayed and grieved to find that Lysander, who has been so passionately in love with her, has now transferred his affections to Helena. Helena is completely puzzled by this change in Lysander. Helena, on the part, is also feeling amazed by both the Demetrius and Lysander's professions and assertions of love for her. She thinks that they are mocking at her and ridiculing her. Hermia thinks that Helena has employed some trick to win over Lysander's heart and thus brings about a separation between Lysander and Hermia. She therefore begins to scold Helena for having employed some cunning method to win Lysander away from her. In fact, Hermia becomes furious at this time and would even like to scratch Helena's eyes with her sharp nails. Helena flees from this spot to escape a physical attack by Hermia. As for the two lovers, Demetrius and Lysander, they have begun to throw challenges at each other because they are now both in love with Helena and have thus become rivals for the hand of Helena in marriage. They agree to fight a duel with each other to decide which of them has a better claim to Helena. Oberon, who is of course invisible to mortal eyes, now orders Puck to see to it that the two young gentlemen do not actually fight. Puck darkens the night with clouds with fog so that the two men cannot see each other, though they still keep challenging each other. Puck thus prevents the two men from fighting. Both the men feel tired of chasing each other vainly, lie down on the ground and falls asleep. Oberon now directs Puck to apply the antidote, which is the juice of Diana's bud, to the eyes of the sleeping Lysander so that when Lysander wakes up, he should become his normal self and should again find himself in love with Hermia. Dawn is approaching. Duke Theseus and Hippolyta now arrives in the wood to perform the certain rituals connected with the May Day celebrations. Theseus has also brought his hounds with him because he is a great huntsman, and because a stag hunt has been arranged for him by the forest officials. Theseus now happens to see certain persons lying asleep on the ground. Aegis, who is also accompanying Theseus at this time, finds that the persons sleeping on the ground are Demetrius, Lysander, Helena, and Hermia. Theseus awakens them and asks what has brought them into the wood. They all are feeling somewhat confused, as if they had been seeing a dream. As a result of the antidote having been applied on Lysander's eyes, Lysander has now become his normal self and is again in love with Hermia. But Demetrius continues to be under the influence of the love juice, and so he continues to be in love with Helena, whom he had previously forsaken. Demetrius now tells the Duke that he no longer loves Hermia and that he would like to marry Helena. Thus, the complication which has been created unpleasantly in the opening scene is now resolved. Duke Theseus tells Aegis that there is now no need to insist on Hermia's marrying Demetrius, because Demetrius voluntarily wishes to marry Helena. The Duke then announces the marriage of Lysander with Hermia and the marriage of Demetrius with Helena would be solemnized the same night when he and Hippolyta are to get married. Thus, there is a complete reconciliation among human beings as well as among the fairies. Bottom wakes up from his sleep in the wood. He still remembers that the Queen of Fairies had been making love to him when he was awake, and yet it seems to him that he had been seeing a dream only. He now returns to Athens and joins his friends who had been feeling very dejected because of his absence. Without Bottom, they would not have been able to stage the play which they have been preparing for performance before the Duke that night. Now they all get ready to present the play in the presence of the Duke at his palace that night. The marriages of Theseus with Hippolyta, of Lysander with Hermia, and of Demetrius with Helena have now been performed. All the couples and other connected with the court of the Duke of Theseus are in a jubilant mood. The artisans come to perform the play about the tragic love of Pyramus and Thisbe on the stage in the presence of the Duke and others. The performance gives rise to much amusement and mirth among the Duke and his friends, because the performers are ignorant fellows whose performance proves to be a most crude and clumsy affair. However, the whole thing passes off smoothly, and then the married couples retire to their respective bedrooms in the palace. The time is now midnight. Oberon and Titania, followed by all their fairies, come to the palace to bless the married couples. Puck has been sent to the palace in advance with a broom to sweep away the dust from the floors of the palace. Oberon then sings a song, and the fairies dance to its tune. Finally, Oberon shows his blessings upon the married couples and upon the children who would be born of these marriages in due course. The fairies then leave, though Puck remains on the stage. Puck recites the prologue to the play A Midsummer Night's Dream. Thank you. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye.